or peace. Okay, so if you are feeling disappointed, if you're feeling resentful, exhausted, and you think it's because of what other people are not doing, this training is going to be mind blowing for you. This is going to give you a different perspective, and it's going to give you a way to understand how you can stop that suffering, how you can stop the disappointment, how you can stop feeling resentful, how you can stop feeling exhausted. I'm super excited. And remember, I prepped you. Just stick with me. Because again, there's going to be some things that I say in here that are going to challenge some beliefs that you may or may not have had for a long time and are most likely going to trigger some of you. And that's okay. Please just stick with me. Okay. All right. So I think it's really, really important to talk to you about what this training is about. And we're also going to talk about what this training is not. So this training is not about lowering your standards. That is so important to understand. I am not suggesting that you lower your standards, that you dissolve boundaries. That is not what we are going to talk about today. And we are not going to talk about how you should be accepting less. Remember, this is all about stepping into your power, taking your power back when we've been giving it to somebody else for so long. So this is not about accepting less. Okay, so remember that throughout this training. This training is about understanding why you keep getting hurt, how expectations create your suffering, what you actually have control over, and how to find peace without waiting for others to change. Anybody feel excited about that? Put a yes, a me, a heck yes. Let's go in the chat. If you are excited about learning how to find peace without waiting for someone else to change. See, that is what ignited in me to learn this, to adopt this, to implement this into my life. Was I was determined to find peace in my life, even if nobody around me changed or my circumstances didn't change. So the problem is not your expectations, okay? It is that no one taught you how expectations work, okay? So let me just let these people in. Okay, keep it on going. The pattern that you can't break. So some of you might notice that you expect things to go a certain way. Anybody ever expect things to go a certain way? Maybe you're throwing a family party, a get together, and you're like, it is going to look exactly like this. I have a sister that does that. We call her the Norman Rockwell moments, where she has in her mind that everything is going to go perfectly. And then our family gets together, and we have a pretty large family, and it never goes the way that she envisioned it, ever. Okay, some of you might notice that things don't go the way that you want. And some of you might feel hurt, angry, disappointed. Then you might shift to blaming him, blaming them, blaming the situation, blaming the circumstances. And you might notice that nothing really changes. And then the cycle repeats itself. Ladies, this is not bad luck. This is how unexamined expectations work. So you tell yourself, when expectations are not met, you think, well, he should have known better. Have any of you ever had that thought come in your mind? Well, he should have known better. I know I have. I have been guilty of that so many times, that he should know better. Or why do I even have to ask? It's like something that seems so common sense, so just right there. Why should I even have to ask? Another thought that I've had, and maybe you've told yourself this, is if he cared, he would just do it. I used to think that about taking the garbage out. If he cared about me, he would just see the garbage was full and he would just take it out. Anybody ever had that thought? If he cared, he would just do it. Another one could be, I should not have to explain this. Maybe you've been frustrated before and your thoughts are, I shouldn't have to explain why I'm so frustrated. Or another thing you could be telling yourself is, This is basic. Everyone knows this. Any of you guys ever thought any of those thoughts before? Put a yep in the chat. If you've ever felt any of those thoughts come in your mind, and these thoughts, they feel true, right? Because we're having them. And they are what's keeping you stuck. Those thoughts are what's keeping you stuck. Let's talk about the truth about expectations. An expectation is a belief about how someone else should behave. Okay, an expectation is a belief about how someone else should behave. It is a story that you create in your mind about what should happen. And then you wait to see if the reality matches your story. And when it doesn't, you suffer. Now, remember, I was telling you about my sister. She would plan these elaborate birthday parties for her children when they were little. And she would expect all the kids to get along and they would all be excited about the activity. And then when she sat down to do the activity with these kids and all they wanted to do was just go play with one another, she was frustrated and she felt like they didn't appreciate her because she went through all this work to create this magical birthday party and all the kids wanted to do was just go play, right? She had created in her mind what should happen. They should want to do this activity. But when the reality didn't match her story, she suffered. Okay. And you can apply that to many different situations in your life. That's just one example of something that happened with my sister. Let's talk about where expectations come from. You did not create them randomly. Okay. Most of them come from how you were raised. Okay. Another way is what you saw modeled. Maybe it's what you saw modeled with your friends, with your parents. You learned them from what you saw that was modeled. They also come from what you were taught about relationships. Okay. That can be what you witnessed, was physically said to you, what you were taught about relationships. Another way is what society says is normal. Have any of you ever heard how something should go and every part of you wants to resist that? Society says you should be one way, but every part of you wants to be a different way, right? So that's another way that we learn how to create expectations is what society says is normal. Another one is what you believe you deserve. That one really stings a little bit. And we're going to go into more about that in just a little bit. But we often create expectations because of a belief that we have internally. Now, remember, our beliefs are stored primarily in our subconscious. So we're not always aware of them until we go find them. But they run the show. And when you have a belief about what you deserve, whether it's what you deserve or what you don't think you deserve, then we create expectations around them. Your expectations, they feel universal, but they are deeply personal. All expectations are deeply personal. So why do we create them? See, your brain creates expectations to help you feel safe. Remember the 3 laws of the brain? I know some of you are new and this is your very first training, but you have 3 laws of your brain: to seek pleasure. That's to encourage you to do things that you know you like. That's how we develop hobbies and passions, because we enjoy that. That's why we become addicted to chocolate and we like sweets and all the different things, because our brain wants to help us seek pleasure. Another one is to conserve energy, right? Our brain, when it believes that we're exuding too much energy, that it's not safe. So it tries to conserve energy. But the biggest one is to avoid pain. Your brain at all costs is going to try to avoid pain. Your brain, whether it's physical or emotional pain, it's the same. It means danger and you're not safe. So we create expectations because it helps our brain feel safe. Okay. It helps your brain predict what will happen or what you hope will happen. It helps your brain prepare for outcomes, good or bad, because remember, familiar equals you're safe. And it helps you feel in control and avoid uncertainty, right? Because the unknown equals danger. When life matches your expectations, you feel safe. When it doesn't, your brain goes into fight or flight. It registers danger. Okay? Expectations are your brain's attempt to control an uncontrollable world. Okay, I want that to sink in for just a minute. Expectations are your brain's attempt to control an uncontrollable world. Okay, I mean, I want you to remember the toddler years when your toddler would be throwing the most massive tantrum. How often could you control that tantrum? If you were a fly on the wall in my home, you never could control those tantrums. They were uncontrollable, right? So there's two different types of expectations. There's healthy expectations and there's unhealthy expectations. Okay? Healthy expectations are based with mutual respect. It's basic safety. It's honesty and shared responsibility in a partnership. Okay. Let me give you an example of an expectation that is based in basic safety. You teach your child to look before he crosses the road, right? You've created the expectation before you cross the road, I expect you to look. That expectation is to create safety. Okay. Now let's talk about unhealthy expectations. Mind reading. You expect someone to read your mind. He should just know what I'm thinking. Ladies, he never knows what you're thinking, ever. Another one is behavioral control. He should act how I want him to act. Now, this applies a lot with our spouse, but it really applies with children. We expect them to act a certain way in certain situations. Okay. Another unhealthy expectation is emotional management. He should make me happy. Anybody feel like it's their spouse's responsibility to make them happy? If he fill in the blank, then I would feel happy or joy or peace or security or contentment. Okay, another one, unspoken agreements. We never discussed this, but he should just do it. He should just know that that's something that he should do. Now, I'm using your spouse as examples because I know that's why a lot of you are here, but it really can apply to anything, your children, your friendships, your family. This can all apply to all areas of your life. See, most women, they have both healthy and unhealthy expectations, but the unhealthy ones are the ones that cause pain. Always. They are always the ones that cause the pain. See, let's talk about the difference between standards and expectations, because some people, when I start talking about this, they say, well, that's a standard or that's a boundary. And I want to really dive into the difference between the two. It's really important to understand them. A standard is what you will accept or not accept. Okay, let me give you an example. I will not stay in a relationship where I am disrespected. That is a standard that you create for yourself, and it's how you will respond if that standard is not met. Okay, an expectation is what you demand someone else to do. Let me give you an example. He should respect me. You can want someone to respect you, but you can't control whether they do or they don't. You can only control how you react if that standard is broken. Okay? Standards give you power. Expectations give your power away. One is about your choices. The other is about controlling theirs. Does that resonate with some of you? One is about your choices. The other is about controlling theirs. So, why unhealthy expectations sabotage you? They set you up for constant disappointment. It is very, very rare that I create an expectation in my life based on what I want someone else to do and they meet it. It's very rare. So unhealthy expectations, they set you up for constant disappointment. Anybody in here constantly feeling disappointed? They create resentment. When unmet expectations continue over time, resentment builds and builds and builds. Anybody in here feel like their resentment is at an all-time high? I want you to recognize like you're not alone in that. And I know that opening up is creating a space for you to be vulnerable. I would invite you to look at the comments in the chat that you are not alone in how you're feeling. Okay. Another way that unhealthy expectations sabotage you is they make you depend on others for your peace. That is the biggest one. That is what ignited me into teaching this, because I was sick and tired of my peace being on the roller coaster of what was going on around me with my partner, with my kids, with my circumstances. I was so sick and tired of my peace being the outcome of what was going on around me. And I was determined to be able to feel peace regardless of what was going on. Okay, another way that expectations can sabotage you is they keep you focused on what's missing. When you're constantly focused on what's missing or what's wrong, you just get more of that. And I'm going to go over that in just a minute and how your reticular activating system is working against you in that in just a minute. It also prevents you from seeing what's actually there. Okay. You are waiting for the world to match your expectations. And while you wait, you suffer. So let's talk about the hidden belief behind every expectation. See, every expectation you have is built on a belief. That can be a positive belief and that can be a limiting belief. And chances are it's a limiting belief because when the expectations aren't being met, you're feeling yucky. You're feeling sad, depressed, resentful, fearful, all the different things. Remember, if it feels dark and heavy, it comes from darkness. It comes in, it's based in a lie. So let me give you some examples on expectations that you have that are built on a belief. The expectation could be, he should help without being asked. Now, a lot of you in your mind right now are like, well, yeah, he should help without being asked, right? Okay, let's challenge the belief behind that. If he loved me, he would notice I need help. If any of you ever had that thought come through your mind? If he loved me, he would notice I need the help. That was what was the sirens going off in my mind. Man, if he loved me, he would recognize I needed help. He would help pick up the house. He would help with the kids, right? That belief, right? Let's go a little bit deeper into that belief. The deeper of the belief could be, I have to earn love by not having needs, right? Because you shift that. Well, if he's not helping me, if he's not recognizing that he should be helping me without being asked, and if I believe that if he loved me, he would notice, then I've got to shift it to, I have to earn my love by not having needs. Do you feel how dark and heavy that feels? Remember, if it feels dark and heavy, it comes from darkness. It's based in a lie. The expectation is just the surface. It's the surface of what's going on. The belief underneath is what's actually hurting you. The key truth to part one: your suffering is not caused by unmet expectations. It is caused by believing your expectations should be met. Oh, anybody just so ticked at me right now? It's okay if you are. I told you in the beginning I was going to trigger you. I was going to say some things that are going to challenge the way that you think and feel. And I also want to applaud those of you that are still here, because I have seen a couple that have left. That's okay. I understand that some of the things that I'm going to tell you are going to challenge thoughts and beliefs that you have. That is my goal, by the way, because if I can't let you see something a different way, I cannot help you get rid of these limiting beliefs. Okay. You can't fix what you can't see, or you can't heal through what's hiding. Okay. When you believe reality should be different than it is, you suffer. It's not your fault. It is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to change if you want change. Now, remember, change is not forced upon anyone, but if you want to feel different, you have to do different than what you've been doing. And that is what I'm trying to bring awareness to. Let's go into part 2. And yes, this is going to be available for replay. Okay, part 2. Let's talk about what your brain is actually doing. Okay, because I think it's really, really important to understand what your brain is doing because you are not your brain. Okay, and that's kind of mind-blowing for some to comprehend. But you are the spiritual being experiencing your brain. And your goal is to learn how to work with your brain. See, remember, your brain has its programming, just like a computer. When you push power, it turns on, right? Like you push space, it creates a space. You push enter, it enters in the page, right? Like your brain is exactly the same way. It is programmed to do what it's supposed to. But when you recognize the programming that's not working for you anymore, you can rewire and change the programming so that it will. Okay. But to do that, it's really important to understand what it's actually doing. Okay. Your brain has been shaped by your expectations. Remember, we just talked about this. Expectations are learned. They could be generational. They could be passed down from your parents. They could be something that you saw. They could be based on society, right? Like your expectations are shaped by what you see and what you accept. Okay. Now, your brain is going to look for proof that you're right. Remember, seek pleasure. I'm right equals pleasure, right? And it's going to create an emotional reality based on what it finds, based on that belief. Okay. We're going to dig deeper into that. Let's talk about how your brain processes expectations. See, here's what's really happening in your brain. You form an expectation, okay? You form an expectation like he should help, okay? You watch to see if it happens, okay? You watch to see if it happens. And your brain compares reality to expectation. And if they match, you feel relief. It not joy, mind you. It's not joy that you're going to feel, just relief. Okay? If they don't match, you feel anger and hurt and disappointment. Okay? You are constantly measuring reality against your expectations because that is your brain's programming. Okay? Let that sink in for a moment. You are constantly measuring reality against your expectations. Now, let's talk about your reticular activating system again. Okay? I brought it up before, but remember, this is your brain's filter. Okay? Your reticular activating system is going to look for evidence of what you already believe. Remember those limiting beliefs that I was just mentioning? If you have a belief about something, that's going to be what creates the expectation. Okay, if you expect disappointment, your reticular activating system is going to go find it. You see how yucky that is? It's just your brain. It's just your programming. That's it, right? If you expect that, if you have a belief that everybody always lets you down. Anybody ever had that yucky belief before? Everybody just lets me down. Your brain is going to look for proof. It's going to look for evidence that that belief is true. If you expect him to fail you, your reticular activating system is going to notice every time he does. Have you ever been in a conversation with your husband where you have this list of all the things he did or didn't do that is the reason you're mad? Okay. And you're listing off this list. You're like, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And you said this and you looked at me this way and you have all this evidence right? You have all this evidence backing up why you're angry. Okay. And he comes back at you with, well, what about when I did this? And what about when I did that? And what about when I helped you with the kids here? And what about when I said this? And he has his list of proof of all the things that he's done, but you don't recognize it because your reticular activating system is looking for all the reasons that he's made you mad or all the things that he didn't do. That is all it's filtering for you. You see what I'm saying? If you expect to be unseen, another way of saying this is if you expect that nothing you ever do is going to be good enough, your reticular activating is going to filter out moments where you are not seen. See what I'm saying? Your brain is designed to prove your expectations right. Now let's go over what a confirmation bias is. Some of you might have heard this before. It's your brain has another trick. Okay. Confirmation bias means that your brain notices evidence that supports your beliefs and ignores evidence that contradicts them. Remember back to that list? If I believe this about my husband, I'm going to have all this proof that what I believe is true. It's going to also ignore everything that contradicts that belief. Now, some of you have followed me on social media and you see my post where I talk about the way that you feel about your husband is 100% related to the thoughts you have about him. Ladies, I fell in that trap so harshly. All I could think about was the most horrific things about my husband because all I was noticing was everything he was doing wrong or everything he wasn't doing to help me. And so my thoughts were this deep pool of everything to support that belief. Okay. You feel the way you feel about your partner because of the thoughts you have about him. Now, for some of you, it's like, well, yeah, and I also have a lot of proof that he doesn't do this and he doesn't do that. And yes, your reticular activating system is going to town looking for all the proof, right? That's what it's programmed to do. Okay, if you expect him not to care, your brain is going to find 10 examples of him not caring. How many of you know exactly what I'm talking about? I'll give you an example. You're in the kitchen, you're making dinner, he's sitting on the couch. The kids are screaming, they're freaking out, the house is a disaster. You feel like you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off, and he's sitting over there scrolling social media. And you're thinking, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about anything that I'm going through. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't care about helping me. He doesn't care. And so your brain is all the ways of proof that he doesn't care. And it also is ignoring the 50 examples of when he did show he cared. That's how it works. That is confirmation bias. Okay. You are not seeing reality. You are seeing your expectations that are derived from a belief that you have. I'll say it again. If it feels yucky, if it feels heavy, if it feels dark, it comes from darkness. It is always 100% of the time based in a lie that the adversary has convinced you to believe about yourself. 100% of the time. Now, my job is to help you recognize what that belief is, yank it out of there, and replace it with how you want to believe about yourself. Okay? So let's talk about how expectations create your emotions. Now, first you have an expectation. Then when the reality doesn't match the expectation, you have a thought. And then that thought creates the emotion that you feel, that energy in motion, which ignites an action, and then you get a result. Let me give you a breakdown of this. Okay. The expectation could be, he should text me back quickly. Any of you ever text your husband and you're like, I should be top on the list. He should text me back so quickly. Doesn't matter what he's doing. Like, he should text me back quickly, right? That's like what he signed up for when he put a ring on it. I've had that thought before. And I've gotten so angry at my husband before when he didn't meet that expectation. So you have the expectation. Then the reality is, well, he didn't text me back quickly because whatever he was doing, maybe he didn't see it. Maybe he was in a meeting. Maybe he didn't have his phone. Whatever the reason may be, the reality was he didn't text me back quickly. Although the thought goes, he doesn't care about me. Because if he cared about me, he would have texted me back quickly. He would have shown me that he cared. And then the emotion kicks in because that thought that he doesn't care about me is a yucky, nasty, heavy thought. And the emotion that is scientifically drawn and linked to that thought is hurt and anger. Then the action that you take because you're feeling hurt and angry is you withdraw or you get cold. And then the result of that is distance grows. Anybody ever had that exact scenario in their life before? Your expectation started the cycle, not his behavior. All he did was he didn't text back in the time frame that you asked or you wanted. That's all that happened. Remember, facts don't have emotions. We talked about this in another training. So if you haven't watched that, go back and rewatch it. Facts do not have emotions. They are neutral. It's the thought about the fact that creates the emotion. The reality, the fact, he didn't text back quickly, right? He did not text back quickly. The thought was he doesn't care about me, which creates the emotion, the action, and the result, and the cycle continues. Now let's talk about a dopamine drop. Okay, because I want you to understand what is happening chemically in your body. Okay, so here's what happens. When you expect something good to happen, your brain releases dopamine in anticipation. Okay, you feel hopeful, you feel excited, your energy is there. Like some people glow, like whatever it is, your brain releases dopamine. Okay. But when that expectation is not met, boom, dopamine drops and you feel disappointed and you feel let down. The bigger the expectation, the bigger the drop. See, unmet expectations do not hurt emotionally, they actually hurt you chemically. Okay. So that's why you shift to blame. Because when expectations are not met, blame feels automatic. See, your brain does this to protect your sense of control. Remember, your brain, seek pleasure, avoid pain, conserve energy. Those are its 3 laws that it is bound to abide by. If he is the problem, then I don't have to change. If he's the problem, then I can stay comfortable. If he's the problem, then you get to feel justified in your pain. When he is the problem, you don't have to look at your limiting beliefs. Ladies, I want you to understand that blame is automatic and it feels automatic because it's your brain's way of avoiding pain. Because remember, emotional and physical pain are the same to your brain. They both equal, I'm not safe. Okay, so if you blame him, then you don't have to look at what's really going on inside of you. Blame is easier than taking responsibility for the way that you feel because remember, no one can think for you and every emotion comes from a thought. Now, we don't challenge the happy emotions. We aren't like, ooh, I wonder what thought was tied to that because we like the way that they make us feel. But it's those negative emotions that we don't want to look at because our brain wants to avoid pain and the adversary really, really wants to keep you feeling yucky. Because if you feel yucky, then you create resentment and distance and blame and all these other things that, he really wants you to feel. Blame is what keeps you stuck. And responsibility is what sets you free. Let's talk about the real reason that you're angry. You're not angry because he didn't meet your expectation. You're angry because you believed he should meet your expectation. That's where the real anger comes from. Your anger is not about his behavior. It's about your attachment to your expectation. And I say this as someone that was a professional creator of expectations. I could have won the Olympic gold for creating expectations. The tighter you hold the expectation, the more you suffer when it's not met. Now, if relating this to your spouse is really hard and triggering, that's okay. Look at it from a parent to child perspective. If any of you have teenagers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You expect them to behave a certain way, and when they don't, you suffer, right? Like you're in church. This is a great example. You're sitting in church, you expect your child to listen, but the speaker is super boring. And so they're tuned out. Maybe they're pulling out their phone, they're fiddling with something, they're poking their sibling, and you're enraged because the belief is you're embarrassed, or maybe people will think you're not a good mom because your child isn't sitting up straight with great posture, looking at the speaker, right? You see what I'm saying? Like relate it to your children if it's easier to relate it to them versus your spouse, because I understand a lot of us on this call are really, really stuck that it's your husband's fault that you're unhappy, right? That's why a lot of you came and met me, was my workshop. So if it will allow your brain to see that there's something different happening, if you relate it to your kids, do it, right? I'm just encouraging and inviting you to see the possibilities that something else is happening, something else other than the narrative that your brain has been saying this whole time. So, what happens to your nervous system? Okay, this is really important because unmet expectations trigger your nervous system like a lot. Okay, when reality does not match your expectation, your amygdala registers a threat. Now, remember, your amygdala is the part of your brain that it's the fight or flight, right? And when it triggers a threat, it ignites that part of your nervous system to take action. Okay, so your nervous system activates in a protection sense, right? That's the whole point of your amygdala. And when you go into that fight or flight or that blame, that criticize, right? So you're going into fight. So you're blaming him. Maybe it's internal blame or you're externally saying the blame, but you're blaming. Maybe you're internally thinking about all the ways you can criticize him, all the thoughts you have about him, or maybe you're saying them to him, right? Or you go to flight, which is you withdraw, you shut down. Okay, that's your amygdala at work. That's to keep you safe, to protect you, right? Because remember, conserve energy, seek pleasure, and avoid pain. Okay, you're not overreacting. That's very important to understand. You're not overreacting. Your nervous system thinks you are in actual danger. Remember, physical and emotional danger, it's the same to your brain. There's no difference. That's why you feel and you react the same way, whether you're physically in danger or emotionally you think you are. It's the same reaction. Unmet expectations feel like rejection and abandonment or failure. Anybody have that hit home for you? That unmet expectations feel like rejection, abandonment, or failure? Let's go to the key truth about part 2. Just went through part 2. Key truth, write this down, remember it. Your brain is wired to make expectations feel real, but they're just thoughts. Your brain is wired to make expectations feel real, but they are just thoughts. The more you examine them, the less power they have. And the less you examine them, the more they control you. Let's go into part 3, the belief underneath. This is the most critical part. This is understanding that limiting belief that is controlling and igniting and propelling the creation of expectations. With every expectation you have, it is actually protecting a limiting belief you have. I also call them lies. Yes, these beliefs limit you, but really all they are is lies that you've believed about yourself. lies that Satan, the enemy, the adversary, whatever you want to call him, has convinced you of at some point in your life. That's all they are. They're not truth. They're dark and heavy, nasty, yucky beliefs that every expectation you have is trying to protect that because it's so painful. Remember, your brain is going to seek pleasure and avoid pain. So it's going to create things, some people call them coping skills, to avoid that pain, to cover it up because it's so painful. When you dig underneath the expectation, you find the belief that is actually running your life. That is powerful. It is painful emotionally because it's such a yucky, nasty belief. But it also is what gives you your power back. Let's talk about how you find that belief. You start with the expectation, okay? Then you ask why. Now, something that is so important to understand about your brain is anytime the thought of I don't know comes to your mind, that is actually just your brain trying to avoid. I call it a chicken exit. Okay. When you say, well, I don't know, like if someone's like, hey, why are you upset? I don't know. Like it's just your brain trying to avoid that nasty pain. Okay. But this is the really, really cool thing about your brain. If you ask it a question, it has to answer. It has to find the answer. Sometimes you have to ask it a couple times for it to chill out and realize that you are safe. Because remember, physical and emotional pain is the same to your brain. So you have to reassure it like, no, I really want to know this answer. That's why sometimes when someone asks you the name of an actor or a song or a movie and you're like, I don't know, but then like hours or days later it pops into your mind, it's because your brain doesn't stop going to work to find the answer, and your brain knows the answers. It has all of them. You have all the information, all the answers about you. No one else does. You do. And your brain has them, and it will go find them when you challenge your brain. Okay. So you start with the expectation, then you ask why. Now, the expectation could be he should help without being asked. That's the expectation. And then you ask why. Maybe the thought comes to your mind because I should not have to ask. Okay, well, let's go a little bit deeper. Well, why shouldn't you have to ask? Well, because asking feels like begging. Okay, well, why, if I ask, do I feel like I'm begging? Well, because if I have to ask, it means he does not care. Okay, well, why doesn't that, why? Why does that matter? Because I believe that I'm only valuable if someone chooses me without effort. Okay, now this may or may not be the belief that you have. This may or may not be the example that triggers and hits home, but this is exactly how you find it. The expectation is just the surface, girls. The expectation is just the surface. The belief is the wound. The belief is what your brain is trying so desperately to hide because it does not feel light and fluffy. It feels dark and heavy. And your brain, along with the enemy, is going to try to hide this belief from you because if you don't recognize the belief, you never change the belief. And if you never change the belief, you never feel peace from releasing that belief. And the enemy can keep you stuck and miserable and in blame. And that's exactly where he wants you. Remember, if you ask, your brain will tell you. I like to do this exercise writing. I will write down the question because when you make it physical, you have more power, and it's really hard for the negative thoughts, the negative influence to derail you from finding the answer. Now, let's talk about what some common limiting beliefs are behind expectations. Okay. These are the big common ones. One, I'm not worthy unless I'm chosen. Okay. That's a very common one. My needs are a burden. Anybody ever felt like if they ask for something, then they're going to be putting someone out? Like if I ask for help, I'm going to be a burden to that person. My needs are a burden. Okay, that's a big one. That's a common limiting belief. Another one is if I have to ask, it doesn't count. If I have to ask you, then it doesn't count. Another one is I have to earn love by being perfect. Anybody ever feel like they're chasing perfection? Like I have to be perfect. My house has to be perfect. My kids have to be perfect. My spouse has to be perfect. Everything has to be perfect because then I've earned love. Another one is people should just know what I need. It should be obvious. If they love me, they recognize and they just know what I need. Another common limiting belief is if he loved me, I would not have to explain. If he loved me, I would not have to explain. These beliefs drive your expectations and your suffering. Let me give you some examples, okay? Let's break this down. Some of these are going to hit home for some of you. If they do, put a 1 in the chat for example number 1. Let's go over mind reading. The expectation is he should know I'm upset without me saying anything, right? Like, he should know I am flat out ticked. I shouldn't even have to tell him that I am mad. He should just know. The belief that could be under that is if I have to tell him, it means he doesn't care enough to notice. Ooh, feels heavy. The deeper belief could be my feelings do not matter unless someone else validates them first. And the result that you get from that is resentment, silence, and emotional walls. Anybody ever felt like that before? Anybody ever had that expectation before? I have. That's why it's an example. I've absolutely had that. Let's go over example number 2. The perfect partner. Again, this was me, which is why it's an example. My expectation was he should always be emotionally available when I need him. Anybody ever want their spouse to be emotionally available whenever you need him? The belief that's attached to that expectation is if he's not there when I need him, I'm alone. I'm doing this alone. The deeper belief, I am not capable of managing my emotions on my own. I need him to be available whenever I need him because I can't do this alone. Yeah. The result of that is dependency. You become dependent on him and you panic when he's unavailable and you lose yourself. That was the deep, deep, deep trench that I was living in for so long. Let's do example number 3, fairness. This one's my favorite. He should do as much as I do. That's the expectation. He should do as much as I do around the house. Let's add that because that was my expectation. He should do as much as me. He should clean as much as me. He should pick up as much as me. He should help with the kids as much as I do. He should do as much as I do. Now, the belief is if I give more, I'm being taken advantage of. And for me to go even deeper than that, it was I didn't believe that I was being appreciated. A deeper belief is my worth is determined by how much I give versus how much I get. And the result in that is you keep score. Well, I did this and he didn't. And it builds resentment and it creates transactional love where he has to put tokens in the bucket to prove he loves you. Transactional love is if you do this, then I will do that. A lot of people with transactional love, they use it with sex. If you do the dishes, we'll have sex tonight. If you help with the kids, if you fill in the blank, transactional love, and it's mostly tied to sex. Example number 4, the good wife. The expectation is I should be happy, I should be patient, and I should never complain. Maybe if you were living in like the 50s, it's a big one. The belief is if I show my real feelings, I'll be too much. The deeper belief, I'm only lovable when I'm easy. The result, resentment, loss of self, and emotional numbness. Anybody ever feel like they have to be perfect? They have to always be happy. They have to always be patient. Maybe not inside of the home, but definitely outside of the home. Never complain, because if I complain, that means I'm not grateful. But that belief, if I show my real feelings, I'll be too much. The deeper belief, that nasty one, I'm only lovable if I'm easy. I'm only lovable if I'm always happy. No one will really love the real me if I show how I'm really feeling. Man, that box, that cage, that ball and chain, that is so dark and so heavy. The key truth to part 3, your expectations are not the problem. The limiting belief connected to the expectation is the problem. It is what is running everything. It is what is creating those nasty, yucky emotions. When you heal the belief, the expectation loses its power. And when you change what you believe about yourself, you stop needing others to behave a certain way to feel okay. It all comes down to the beliefs, the subconscious beliefs that are 95% of your thought processes that are running everything. Because the expectation that's created is to try to avoid the pain of the belief. And what is happening or not happening is what is poking that trigger that is connected to that limiting belief or that lie. When you change what you believe about yourself, you stop needing others to behave a certain way to feel okay. You stop needing your husband to fill in the blank, to feel loved, to feel lovable, to feel peace, to feel joy, to feel happiness. You stop needing that because that belief is no longer running everything in your life. Now, let's talk about how to find freedom. We have discussed what expectations are, why they show up, how they're learned, what they're tied to, how to identify a limiting belief. Now, let's talk about the real thing you want is the freedom. Let's talk about how to find the freedom because you cannot control his behavior. And a lot of you have recognized that already. But you can change your belief. The lie, the limiting belief that you hold, you can change that. You can release expectations that are hurting you and you can reclaim your peace. How do we do that? Number one, you have to name the expectation. And you've got to get really, really specific about what you are expecting. The more specific that you can be, the more you're going to calm your brain down, the more you're going to actually be able to find the answers. Vague, broad explanations, they are chicken exits. They are avoiding. You have to get very specific. Now, not saying like, well, he should be better. Instead, I expect him to ask about my day every evening. You see how that is a very specific expectation? Not like, well, I expect him to just do better. No. What are you really expecting? What are you really wanting from him? Write it down. Say it out loud. Own that this is your expectation. It is not universal law. Okay? You cannot change what you can't see. That is huge. You cannot change what you cannot see. Number 2, find the belief underneath. Ask yourself, why do I have this expectation? And keep asking why until you hit the belief. You will hit it. It is impossible for your brain to not find the answers you are asking. Write down what comes up. Everything, every thought you have, write it down. It's going to be way easier for you to decipher what are your thoughts and what are negative influences when you write them down. Okay, so write down what comes up. What would it mean if this expectation was not met? These are some questions that you can start with. What am I afraid that it says about me? Okay, and what do I believe I need in order to feel worthy, loved, and safe? Because that's what we're all looking for, is to feel worthy, to feel loved, and to feel safe. The belief underneath is where your power lives. Okay, these are just some questions. You can screenshot this, you can come back and rewatch it, but these are some questions to get you started. Once you get in the rhythm of this, your brain will just keep going. So just keep writing. It's actually a really cool experience. Okay, number 3, I need you to challenge the belief. Question the belief instead of accepting it as truth. See, that is what got you stuck in this situation in the first place, is you believed the lie when it was presented to you. Now, I don't want you to beat yourself up about this because it's not something that you did on purpose. Chances are, and most likely, you didn't even recognize that the thought, the influence to convince you of this limiting belief, you didn't even recognize it wasn't your own. So you believed it, and that's why it's been stuck there for so long. So I want you to question the belief instead of accepting its truth. Now, if you want to accept it as truth and you want to keep holding on to it, you absolutely can. You have your agency. There's no have tos in this. You can do that. If you're not ready to look at it and let it go, that is okay. There's no shame in that. Okay? But if you want to challenge the belief, you could ask yourself, is this belief actually true? Remember, if it feels dark and heavy, it's always based in a lie. If it feels light and fluffy, it's always based in truth. You could ask yourself, where did I learn this? What situation or moment in my life do I remember feeling this way the first time or the worst time? That opens your brain up to looking for answers. The first time or the worst time. Okay. What evidence do I have against this belief? Now, remember, I don't want you to go looking for all the proof that it's true, right? I don't want your reticular activating system to keep going to work at what's making this belief true. If it's dark and heavy, it's not true. It's based in a lie, right? But your brain's going to look for familiar. And if it's stuck in a pattern of looking for familiar about how this lie is true, it's going to try to go there automatically because that's familiar, not because it's what's serving you. Okay, so I want you to look for evidence that you have against the belief. Okay, now if the belief is that I'm not lovable, I want you to look at all the ways that people show you they love you, all the ways that people show you they care. Okay, that's so important. And you could also ask yourself, who would I be without this belief? If this lie did not exist in me, who would I be? How would I feel? Beliefs are not facts. Remember, facts have no emotion. Beliefs that are negative, they are not facts. If it feels dark and heavy, it comes from darkness. It's always based in a lie. The beliefs are the thoughts that you have practiced. Just as much as you can practice a lie, a negative, limiting belief, you can also practice a positive, happy, powerful belief. Step number 4 is I need you to communicate clearly. State what you need clearly instead of expecting it silently. Now, remember, just because you state it clearly does not mean that it's going to happen. Because remember, you can't control anybody else, right? But instead of expecting and resenting, you could state what you need clearly. And it could look something like, hey, I would really love it if you asked me about my day. It would really help me feel connected. Okay. I would go out on a limb to say that if you approached your partner, your spouse, your friends with a need clearly like that, that they would really want to do that for you. Just willing to bet that it would happen. I would love it if you asked me about my day. It would really help me feel connected. See, as much as you want connection, so does your partner, your spouse. They want to feel connected also. Okay. Now, this could not look like you never ask me about my day, because that's blame. You never ask about my day, blame. Or why do you not care? That's accusation. Okay. So get clear on what you need and state it clearly without blame and without accusation. People are not mind readers, just like you are not a mind reader. You might think sometimes that you are, but really you're not. No one can be in anybody's head. No one can think the thoughts you have. No one can read your mind. So stop expecting them to. People are not mind readers. And clarity is kindness. Get really clear on stating what you want. Now, we talked a couple trainings ago about why some people don't feel like they can clearly express what it is that they need, that is tied to a limiting belief. That was in our confidence class. So if you want to go back and rewatch all about confidence and why some people can say what they want while others don't feel like they can, it really breaks that down there. But that is always tied to a limiting belief. If you don't feel like you can say what it is that you want. And we've kind of gone over that a little bit in this training as well. Number 5, I need you to take responsibility for your emotions, as hard as that may be. Your emotions are created by your thoughts and your beliefs, not by his behavior. His behavior pushed the belief or it influenced the thoughts. But remember, nobody can think for you, so nobody can make you feel anyway. Your emotions are created by your thoughts and beliefs, not by his behavior. Now, go back to the beginning of this training where we talked about standards and boundaries, right? And remember that his behavior could trigger a standard you have or a boundary that you have for yourself, but that is not based in control. That is what you will do if a boundary or is crossed. Okay. He did not make you feel angry. You thought he should behave differently, and that thought created the anger. This is not blame. This is powerful. When you take responsibility for your emotions, you take your power back. When you own your emotions, you can actually change them. As long as you keep making it his fault, you will never be able to change the way you feel. That's the hard truth. No one else can control how you feel. That power is yours and yours alone. Others only can influence it. So let's talk about what changes when you release expectations. You stop waiting for others to make you happy. You stop resenting people for not meeting your needs that they did not know that you had. You start communicating clearly. You feel peaceful even when things do not go your way, and you reclaim your power. If that hits home and that's something that you want, put a me in the chat right now. Go ahead, put me. If you want to stop waiting for others to make you happy, if you want to stop resenting people for not meeting the needs that they didn't even know that you had, if you want to start communicating clearly, if you want to feel peaceful when things don't go your way, and if you want to reclaim your power, put me. Holly, I see you. Freedom is not getting what you expect. Freedom is not needing to get it. Christina, I see you. Yes. The hard truth, releasing expectations does not mean that you accept bad behavior. That is so critical to understand. Releasing expectations does not mean that you accept bad behavior. It means you stop suffering while you decide what to do about it. You can set boundaries. You can make requests, and you can leave, but you do it from clarity, not from resentment. Boundaries are about you, about respecting you, about your self-worth, about your values. You can make requests because that's what it means to be in a partnership. You can even leave and you can stay. This isn't about leaving or staying. This is about gaining clarity. That's what this is about. Just want to be very clear. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm inviting you to look at the possibilities when you make them from clarity. You're not broken because you have expectations. It literally just means that you're human. But you do not have to suffer because of them. You do not have to suffer because of them. That is so important to understand. I want to thank you. I want to thank all of you for being here today and for listening and for interacting and for just being open to there being a different way or something that is going on under the surface. These trainings are not always easy to hear because they're always self-reflecting, always. And I'm so grateful that you're here and I'm proud of you for being here. And I'm excited about next week's training. They're always the same time, same place, always. If you have a request, if you have a request for a topic that you would really like to learn more about, put it in the community. I would love to make these trainings about what you're looking for. So please put them in the community. Let me pull up this chat really quick because I can see you guys are in there chatting. Um, let's see. Who would I be without this belief? That's interesting. Yeah, I would invite you to look into that. That's really powerful, Lillian. Um, so yeah, if you're not in the community, um, put put me in the chat. I can put the link there. I've kind of changed it and revamped it a little bit. So how the community works is if you're not in it, you get a 7-day free trial for joining. After that, it's $47 a month. And with that, you get all the recordings to these calls. So if you're not in the community, you get access to this recording for 7 days. It will be up later. That's what you get access to. If you're in the community, you get the entire vault of every training I've ever done. So you can go back and watch and rewatch. You also get a bunch of tools in there that you can use and you can implement. There's a lot, and you get access to the clarity call, which is on Fridays, where we take what we learned today and we open it up to applying it to your life, where you can ask questions. We can work together to really uncover that limiting belief. So you get access to those clarity calls that are every Friday at 10. Okay, so the trainings are Thursday. You get the vault, you get all the tools, you get all the workbooks, and you get access to the clarity calls. So if you're in the community, great. Show up for tomorrow's call. It's going to be incredible. We're really going to dive in and uncover some of these limiting beliefs. Remember, because your brain is trying to avoid pain, your brain tries to hide these limiting beliefs from you. But the really cool thing about somebody else asking the questions is my brain is not hiding your limiting belief. I can see it clearer and I can help you see it clearer and quicker because my brain's not trying to hide your pain. So join the community. There will be a link I'm going to send out today with the link to rewatch this training. I know some of you are talking about your husbands really wanting to watch it, which is amazing. Amazing. And there will be a link to join the community there so that you can participate in those clarity calls. If there are any of you that are interested in working one-on-one with me, reach out. Let's chat, because I have a couple of spots open for one-on-one coaching where we can really go fast and dive deep into getting to the bottom of what's really going on. So reach out. I have 2 spots open right now. And once those close, there won't be any more open for another 12 weeks. So reach out. Let's get talking about that. Again, thanks so much for being here. And remember to show up next week. And if you can jump on that clarity call tomorrow, that can really, really help you. So go have a great week and we'll talk soon.